Hello again, and welcome to our series of live interviews with some of the Theatre by QE2 entertainers and comedians. Now, thank you, first of all, Theatre by QE2, Book My Show, and H2 Productions, particularly Nigel for hitting the buttons, hopefully at the right time. Now, before I introduce tonight's guest, let's just quickly talk about last night's competition and announce the winners. Ian Beattie was on the show. Ian lives life as Freddie Mercury with the Queen Experience. We were talking about what to expect from their show later in the year here on board the QE2. Now, for 2 tickets to the show, we asked who played Freddie in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody. Rami Malek was the answer. Congratulations to Wendy Beattie on the Theatre by QE2 Facebook page, and Stephanie Fernandez on the Book My Show Facebook page. Congratulations. We'll be in touch very soon. Now, every night we're giving away free tickets for productions in the future at Theatre by QE2 or with Big Fish Comedy at Theatre by QE2. And I'll have another question in a few minutes. Now, joining us on the line tonight is an entertainer and a comedian and a pantomime. He's kind of everything. So here's a sneak peek of our guest today.
Welcome to the BTT's award ceremony, hosted by me and Deck. That's right, welcome to the BTT Awards. Coming live from the finals of Britain's Got Talent. Look to camera, cheeky grin, the girls love it. Here's the nominations for Best Kids TV Show.
Jon Clegg is with us. Jon is Ant and Deck and loads of other people. Jon, really good to have you on. How are you?
Great. Yeah, lovely to be on. How are you, Ian? You right?
We're not bad, actually. How's lockdown been treating you, Jon, first of all?
Yeah, it's not too bad actually. I need a bit of a haircut at the moment, but yeah, I managed to have a shave this morning, so that was an event, to be honest. But no, it's weird, you know. As a comedian, what can you do? Everyone says, "Well, can't you work from home?" But I think my wife's going to get a bit bored of my jokes, to be honest. But she's insisting that I put voices on all the time, so she thinks she wakes up with someone different every morning.
They say variety is the spice of life, I suppose, Jon, don't they? Look, I've got loads of things to ask you because you're a man of so many talents, and we'll run through some of them. But I wanted to look at your performing background. I mean, clearly that was a clip from Britain's Got Talent, and I wanted to say before anything, one of the things that stood out for me about your performance is, and it was kind of unusual, but in a good way, you were so comfortable on stage. You just came on and you just owned it.
Yeah, do you know, it's one of those funny things. I guess, you know, after performing for so many years now, you know, I've been doing it for nearly 25 years. And I think that stands you in good stead because there was a lot of very, very nervous people backstage. But, you know, even with all those years of experience, I was still really, really nervous. And I sort of equate it to if you think about a duck on water, on the top, you're gliding, you're looking magnificent. And underneath, your legs are doing this, like that, going 10 to the dozen. You're thinking, what's next? What's next? What line am I next? You know, how's this audience reacting to me and all that? So, but it definitely stood me in good stead, especially when it got to the final with all those cameras on you.
Well, I mean, there was a twist, wasn't there, in it? You eventually made the wild card position. Did you know, by the way, it's 6 years to the day since you were brought back for the grand finale?
Well, do you know, I did actually, because funnily enough, I mean, that's the great thing about Facebook, isn't it? It was coming up with, they come up with memories every year, and it says 6 years ago. And it, you know, there was pictures of me, and it was in newspapers and all that sort of stuff. Jon Clegg gets the wild card. So, yeah, it's great to look back on those memories and see all the comments that people made and all the people that were tuning in to the show and supporting me all the way through. It's brilliant.
Is that cheeky little look that Deck gave you then as well? That really makes that. It's lovely. Let's rewind a little bit, and I want to kind of run through your career to sort of give people a flavour of exactly what you've done and what you're going to be doing here in Dubai. But you're a pretty experienced pantomime guy, aren't you?
Yeah, do you know, I did Panto. Well, this year, hopefully, if all is well and Pantos do happen, I'm I'm still sort of forever hopeful. But this year will be my 20th year doing pantomime. Would be my 20th Christmas on the trot doing pantomime, and it's something that I did before Britain's Got Talent, and something that I did for many years. And it's great because when you're a solo performer like me, it's great to get with a cast of people and get on stage and have that sort of rapport with other entertainers on stage, and it really is fascinating, really, because you think of theatre as being full of actors and actresses and performing people, but there's so many people come together. I mean, I'm a comedian. I'm not trained as an actor, but I'm working with people who do Shakespeare for the rest of the year, people who are radio presenters, or people who've been in a reality program and stuff like that. So it's a great mix of people. I did last Christmas. I worked at Richmond Theatre in London with Jo Brand, and she was absolutely fabulous. She was great. She played the Wicked Queen, and I was the comedy idiot, as I always am, typecast every year. I don't know why, but yeah, I seem to get typecast in the same roles every year. I'm the comedy idiot who never gets to snog the princess, but it's great fun.
I think we've got a couple of pictures, actually. I wonder if Nigel's listening. I know that in the background there, but there you are with
There we
Jo
are,
Brand.
yeah.
Not looking like a comedy idiot. You look like a happy pantomime person.
Well, and funny enough, on that picture, there's the lovely Jason Sutton who played the Dame in the pantomime, and he works the rest of the year as a drag act. So again, he's not an actor. He's not he doesn't do Shakespeare or anything like that. He does something completely different. But we all come together in panto, and it just seems to work. And of course, it's the first time for a lot of kids that they've gone to a theatre show, and that's where you've got to grab them. Do you know what I mean? You've got to grab the kids and get them in the mood for a bit of theatre, and hopefully they'll keep coming back and move on to other sort of theatre genres. So it's great, and it's a brilliant time of the year to do it as well.
Well, it is, isn't it? And it's it's a proper training ground. It always strikes me. Oh, there's you. Is that Buttons?
That's Buttons. Yeah, look at that. Look at that costume. Look, I could have been a plumber.
Looking slightly more like the comedy idiot there, I have to say.
I know, yeah. Typecast every year, but it's just fantastic.
There you go.
Me, yeah, I'm Smee there in the bottom corner, looking fabulous. I spend a lot of my time at sea, but that year at Christmas, that was a fake ship in a theatre in Richmond. There we are, with the brilliant Robert Lindsay as well. He was an absolute joy to work with, and such an amazing performer. I mean, he's won awards in the West End and on Broadway, and obviously we know him from many TV shows that he's done. But he was fabulous, and that's another thing about panto, is you learn so much, especially during rehearsals. You learn a lot from the actors, the people who are the proper theatre performers, shall we say. You do learn so much, and it's great fun. It's great camaraderie for 6 weeks.
Let's see what else you've done. There you go. That's you as Elvis, I believe.
That is me. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to thank my fans. I want to say thank you very much. Looking good. I had a pet mouse. He died. Yeah, he was caught in a trap. Yeah, there he is. But looking good. But that was in a fabulous show called Forever in Blue Jeans, which is still running in the UK. It's been running now for around it's got to be 25 years now. I'm pretty sure it's over 25 years. It's been running in the UK, doing the theatres, and I did some comedy slots in that show, and I was also singing and dancing in some of the medleys, and that was my big moment, coming on as the great man himself. Oh, I had to work on the lip like that. Oh, great fun.
Well, everybody's got an Elvis impression, haven't they? To differing degrees of success. There's one more picture. Actually, there's one more picture I want to show you. This is not for embarrassment's purposes, but can you explain this?
Well, do you know what? If the lockdown goes on any longer, that's what my hair's going to end up looking like again, I think. But although with a bit more grey. That was my first ever publicity shot, and that was 20 26 years ago. Yes, yeah, I'm actually older than I look. But yeah, that was me. My first ever publicity shot. I thought I was going to be, a rock star. Actually, I fancied myself as a bit of a Kurt Cobain, I think, back then. But yeah, and that was me before I sort of embarked on my career. Which yeah, that was the photo that got my first job in show business, which was working for Air Tours way back in the day, working out in Mallorca.
Well, if it got you somewhere, you got more hair now than I've got, so you're ahead in many respects. Let's move on from your pantomime career for just a second. I know that's ongoing, but the point where you thought to yourself, I've got the performing bug, obviously, but the point where you realised, I'm an impressionist, I could do this.
I think really, because I didn't really fancy myself as a performer at first. My dad was a comedian for many, many years. He appeared in various TV shows. He was in Opportunity Knocks and on New Faces back in the late 80s, and he did The Comedians as well, and various other TV shows. And we used to he did impressions as well at the very start of his career, and we used to compete with our impressions. And I think it all started really when I was at school. I was 12 years old, and I was doing impressions of the teachers, shall we say. There was a particular teacher who had a Scouse accent. She used to talk like that, and I used to take it off like that, do impressions of her voice like that, little bit like John Bishop, it sort of stood me in good stead for doing my John Bishop impression like that. And the other kids used to find it fascinating that I could do a Scouse accent. And then it moved on to TV. The young ones came along. One of my original comedy heroes, sadly no longer with us, Rick Mayall. And I used to after the show was on in an evening, the next morning I go into school and I go, right on, Rule Britannia. Aha, nobody loves you, Rick, shut up, aha. Like that, Rick and Vivian, that was it. That was my first sort of TV impressions back then. And then after the weekend, I used to go in and do my Bruce Forsyth. Nice to see you, bit of Tommy Cooper, very much. All those classic people that were on the TV back then. Me, as a child, coming into my teenage years, used to entertain the kids. And then we used to get together, me and my dad, at family parties and do a few voices. And eventually I got into my 20s and I thought, I could make a living out of doing this. I was watching my dad on stage every night and thinking, I could give this a go. So I applied for the job, went out to work as an entertainer, built up an act while I was there, a little 45-minute spot, and then eventually took it out on the road.
It's interesting that, because I'm thinking, when I was a kid, the only real impressionist I remember when I was a little kid, I grew up watching Mike Yarwood on TV, and he's kind of the first impressionist I can really remember, because that was absolutely his thing. I can see him in a Macintosh with the pipe, and he all of a sudden became the former Prime Minister Harold Wilson, and he did. I'm pretty sure he did Tony Hancock as well. So those are sort of my memories. Did you watch people like that?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Yarwood, you have to sort of look back, and I would have been sort of a child going into my teenage years when he was so big on the TV. And, you can't fail but be influenced by someone like him, because he was a showman. Some people can do voices, but it's making a show out of it, making it funny, making it entertaining. That's the difficult part. And he was the consummate entertainer, really, for me. To be able to have 25 million viewers watching him every week. Back in those days, he was superb. And I think he taught me a lot of things. Watching him really taught me a lot of things about mannerisms as well, because you can do the voice, but then you're waiting for someone to come along. Like at the moment, when Donald Trump came along, for someone like me, that is manna from heaven, because he's got all of that. He's got all the sort of, he's got the mannerisms like that. That's right. The facial expressions, does all that. Yeah, that's right. My name is Donald Trump. Yeah, the Donald is here. That's right. I really love my tiger feet. That's right. So someone like him comes along and you just think, thank you very much. And it's all about studying them, doing the voices. And I think Mike Yarwood was the absolute master at doing that.
It was. Does anybody ever get offended? And when we saw Deck from Ant and Deck feign offence there for a laugh, but do you ever think on stage, I can't do, oh, we've had the opportunity as well, but I can't do this in front of the actual person I'm sending up?
No, because I think most people take it well, take it in good spirit, and I think if you do it with a cheeky grin, you can get away with it. I think. I mean, I did a Simon Cowell impression in my first audition. Okay, stop you there. Sorry, that was absolutely terrible. And I pulled my trousers up to my just below my chest and undid my shirt, and I thought, hopefully he'll take that well, and he did. He took it very, very well. But funnily enough, talking about Donald Trump, I was on a cruise ship recently, and I did a Donald Trump impression, and I got a very strong complaint from some Trump fans after the show. They were not happy at all. I thought they were joking at first. I said, well, you have to know that in the UK we take the mickey out of our politicians, but they didn't know what I meant by take the mickey, so they took it very badly. But usually,
I think a mickey's a banknote, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or something. I mean, imitation's the serious form of flattery is a phrase I think I've heard before. So in a way, if you get complaints, you're doing your job well.
I know. I think that's it. Yeah, and I think as long as you don't come out with something rude, something that's offensive, I think as long as it's all done in good fun, I think people actually quite like it. You know, I think people quite like getting taken off. I was, funnily enough, another cruise ship story. I did pantomime with Craig Revel Horwood must have been about 8 years ago, the Strictly Come Dancing judge, and they had a Strictly themed cruise that I was on. I was on working on a cruise ship for P&O, and while I was on there, Craig Revel Horwood was on the ship, and he was doing his judging, and they used to do some dancing. They'd have some professional dancers on, and they'd do a show, and then he would judge them, and it was all very tongue in cheek. And I was on in the venue at the other end of the ship, and I didn't think that he was in the audience, and I did an impression of him. Little did I know in the darkness that he was sat literally in the front row in front of me. And I said, it's an absolute disaster, darling. I mean, it's overwhelmingly awful, fabulous. And he just shouted out from the darkness, how very dare you? I'm running out of the audience. It's brilliant. And so he took it very, very well.
Jon, let me just offer a competition question just very quickly. To win tickets to see Jon's show on board the QE2 later in 2020, you need to follow the Facebook page that you're watching now to win. But here's the question. 2 tickets to see Jon Clegg on the QE2. What year did Jon appear on Britain's Got Talent? Please like and follow the Facebook page if you're watching to get news of our next shows, more chances to win as well. That's Theatre by QE2. Big Fish Comedy, and book my show. Jon, it's a really tough gig that you've chosen. I was sat thinking about this afternoon. Most of us could impersonate someone for a second or two, maybe with a look or a well-chosen line. I mean, I used to think that my Frank Bruno impression was great, and then I realised all I did was said, well, Harry, in a deep voice. I mean, that's what everybody did back then. But to create a full act, adopting someone else, and having to be funny and topical for a sustained period while you're at it, that to me seems like really hard work.
Yeah, do you know, it can be, but I think if you can adapt your voice and that's what you do, it probably feels easier than it actually looks, I guess, because, you know, I mean, in my Britain's Got Talent show, I had a remote control because I only had 2 minutes, so I wanted to try and fit as many voices as I could into those 2 minutes, and so I was with the remote control changing channels like that, so change from voice to voice to voice like that, and that's when it becomes hard, you know, especially if they're contrasting voices. I mean, I did The Simpsons in my show, and you can, Homer Simpson is Jenny, Homer, yes, Marge, what are you talking about? And then you got to switch to Marge, which is, oh, Homie, what are you talking about now? Homie. And then maybe go back to Homer Simpson like that. Oh, then back to Marge. That's when it gets tricky.
Do you ever mix the characters? Would you ever do like a Momer and Harge?
That would work.
That might work.
That's a whole new TV show, isn't it?
You can have that idea for free. One of the other things is that I suppose you have to keep it current, don't you? You've got to be continually working with whoever's in the headlines or in the news in some way.
Yeah, I think that was what was tricky about Britain's Got Talent, was the fact that they wanted all the impressions to be bang up to date. You know, people who are on TV now, you know, don't do anyone who's, I mean, even the likes, I really wanted to do Billy Connolly, because he's one of my big heroes. Billy, I love the big yin. I do a bit of Billy Connolly. He's one of my favourites. But they said, oh no, he hasn't been on for a few months, so you know, leave him out. So I mean, they're really sticking to this. You know, you've got to be current, and the people are on the TV now, and so much so that I did an impression of another guy who was in the semi-final. So I sort of kept that very, very topical, and I think they were very impressed with that. I just did an impression of another contestant who was in the actual show itself. So when you watch that back, people are looking and thinking, "Who's this guy he's doing an impression of?" You know, yeah. But it was very topical brilliant. At the time.
There's so much media coverage these days. I mean, it's straight to your phone. There's so much video available. There's so much celebrity stuff going on, and it's everywhere. Is that useful when you're creating a new character, or is it too much noise, too much information to handle?
I don't know. I think it's useful from the point of view of people are kept in the public eye, I guess. So, you know, if someone's on a TV show, I mean, we're talking about Mike Yarwood a little bit earlier on, and it was at a time when we only had 3 or 4 channels on TV. So everybody was watching the same programs. You know, families would sit down and watch the same thing, and then they'd switch over and watch the same thing on another channel. So, you know, there was only a certain amount of people that were on TV at the time. So if you did an impression of them, everybody knew who they were. Whereas nowadays, of course, 2,000 channels and people watching YouTube and Netflix and all of that, you know, it's tricky. So people like Anton Deck who come along that everybody knows because all the family sit down and watch them. You know, you're on a winner with them. But so I think some people on social media, if they get a lot of coverage on social media, it helps you as an impressionist because the kids are watching it or other people are seeing it, whether they might not be on TV at the time, but they're seeing it on social media and coverage in the newspapers and things like that. So yeah, I would say it's definitely a help.
Once you decide on a character and you think to yourself, right, I can do that, and you're ready to start getting down to the serious business of learning the person. What's the process? Because you said earlier, it's not just the voice, is it? It's the mannerisms, the facial quirks. It might be the walk. It may be, I mean, in some people, the clothes they wear, you know, which are kind of props really. But what's the process to really pull off the impression, Jon?
I think another thing that's very useful to me is YouTube, for example, because if you want to study someone, you look them up on YouTube, you can flick it back, you can go over it, you can pick out little words, some of the words that they may have said, and watch their mannerisms, stuff like that. So it's a great way to study people. You don't have to sort of wait for their TV show to come on at 7 o'clock that night, so you can, let's have a little look and see what they do. You can literally at touch of the button get on YouTube and pick out certain things. When I was learning to do Michael McIntyre, I was studying the voice, but then when you watch him, you sort of know that he sort of nods his head like that, and he talks to me, and he will say, "Hello, yes, welcome to Michael McIntyre's Comedy Roadshow. Yes, are you well? Yes, are you well?" And the hair comes like that, and he nods around like that, and it makes you dizzy, to be fair. But stuff like that which you can study on YouTube and just see the way they do it, and then of course things like props come into play. I've got to do this for especially for Sonia from Big Fish Entertainments, because she loves my Alan Carr. Put on a pair of glasses like that, and all of a sudden, hello, welcome to Alan Carr, chatty man. Oh yes, that's lovely. All right, yes. Oh, thank you very much. And so all these little things.
It's amazing the difference a really simple prop can make.
I know, isn't it amazing? And again, talking about Mike Yarwood, he was a master of that. You know, he put on a pair of glasses or a hat or something like that, and all of a sudden he turns into Steptoe and Sons. You know. Amazing.
It's just incredible. So, I mean, there's the other side as well, and this is really difficult for people. I think I'm terrible at accents. I've got a Glaswegian wife, but I get slapped whenever I try and do her voice. But regional accents, the UK, where you and me are from, has a massively wide variety of accents that you have to learn to master. You had the teacher from Liverpool at school. You did Billy Connolly just a moment ago. But your Alan Hansen, the former Liverpool player, the TV pundit, for me is the one, because he's got this kind of, it's not from Glasgow, I know that, but he's got this kind of west of Scotland, it's a drawl. You got that down to a T.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. Actually, I was watching, because you had Mark Lawrenson on, didn't you, recently? And I was watching him, and I remember Alistair McGowan saying that the only word that he could do an impression of Mark Lawrenson on was when he said, "Well, at the moment, Gary," and he said, and all I could say was, "At the moment." At the moment, Gary, I think it's absolutely awful, terrible defending. But of course, Alan Hansen was his sidekick for many years, both as a player at Liverpool and then, of course, on Match of the Day. And he was one who I absolutely used to love doing. I mean, I still do him now, because people still really appreciate it, even though he hasn't been on Match of the Day for about 5 or 6 years now. I think people still appreciate him because he just had that sort of voice. I mean, you look at the game, you go to see, I mean, it's absolutely diabolical. Terrible to finish with a goal. Look at that. Passing movies, got 8 feet, time and again and again and again and again. I mean, totally and unbelievably diabolical. He's great. And so someone like him, he comes along, what a great voice. And I think that a regional accent helps with an impression as well. If you've got a Geordie accent or a Scottish accent or something like that, or a Welsh accent like Rob Brydon, I'm not going to lie. Look at that, joking I am. I've got to say I'm not going to lie to you. If they have the accent, I think it sort of helps. It helps for me, and I've always been able to do accents. So I think it helps. If someone's just got a normal Southern accent like me, I think it gets a little bit harder to do the impressions, And on deck, you got a Geordie voice like that. That's right, welcome back to Britain's Got Talent. It makes it easier. They've got the Geordie accent, a bit like Sarah Millican as well, with that voice like that. You're up there like that, turning into a woman's voice, but you've got the Geordie accent like that, even though she's from South Shales. Lovely.
It's the way you chop and change, which you said earlier. In your act, who's the hardest to do? Or actually, and another way of phrasing it, who have you never been able to quite get, if anybody?
Oh yeah, that's a tricky one. But I think the one that I really struggled with, and I was really disappointed, was David Walliams, because obviously when I was on Britain's Got Talent, he was one of the judges, and I thought I'd be great to do an impression of him, but I couldn't get the voice. And when I watch Dead Ringers or listen to Dead Ringers on the radio and watch Alice McGowan and John Coleshaw and Rory Bremner and people like that, none of them seem to do an impression of him. And I think he's just got one of those voices, which is, I don't know, it's a Southern accent. It's just very hard to pick out his voice. So he was one which I was really disappointed. I also remember I struggled with my Chris Eubank at first, many years ago, and I couldn't quite get the pitch right on it. I mean, I get away with it now, but I did a pantomime audition, funny enough, to go and work with Julian Clary in pantomime. And when I went to the audition, Julian Clary was there with the producers, and they said, right, off you go, do some voices. And I thought, I'll do my Chris Eubank. And it wasn't quite coming out, so I was going, boxing is barbaric because my father was a boxer and my grandfather was a boxer. I am a Cocker Spaniel. Boxing, like this. And I was talking like that, like Chris Eubank. And Julian Clary actually said to me, oh yes, well, I loved your impressions, but I have to say that your Chris Eubank was like a macho version of me.
Isn't that high praise?
Yeah, I suppose it was really in some sort of way, but
oh, kind of. It's just Chris Eubank saying I'm a Cocker Spaniel. Sorry, that got me going there for a minute. You can win. Jon Clegg is here. You can win tickets tonight to see Jon's show on board the QE2 here in Dubai later in 2020. You need to follow the Facebook page you're watching to win. Here's the question. Just comment in the feed you're watching. What year did Jon appear on Britain's Got Talent? Don't forget to follow us on social media for more chances to win as well. On Instagram, you can find us, QE2 Theatre, at Big Fish Comedy ME, and bookmyshow_UAE. Jon, I wanted to ask you to do a few impressions. You've done loads during the course of us chatting here. I did want to ask you to do a Donald Trump again, though, because with what's happening in America at the moment, it might be an appropriate time.
Well, you talk about Donald Trump. That's all you got to do. All you got to do is just shake your hands like that. Put your fingers together, just like that. Makes it nice and easy, okay? Oh, that's right. I know everything to know that there is to know, in fact, about this China virus. I mean, this coronavirus. I do apologize. But yeah, all you got to do is drink bleach, get yourself out in the sunshine, and you'll be absolutely fantastic. Ibuprofen. That's all you got to do. Okay, that's right. So good, so great. Thank you very much.
You make a lot more sense than the current president of the United States, may I say. At the end of the day, what do you think David Beckham might think of that?
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's about the end of the day coming at the end of the day, really. I mean, all he'd say is about the end of the day is the end of the day. I mean, I woke up at the end of the day, and yeah, that's absolutely right. And that right, Victoria, yeah.
I think that's my favourite. Your impressions. Someone also said to me, and I'm going to blame Sonia for this, to ask you if you've had an accident, Jon.
After the accident, look at that. I've never shown that you get on your nerves. After an accident, and I think I'm entitled to some compensation. I do believe that is another one of Sonia's favourites.
Joe Pasquale, as you might have realised. Final couple of questions. I have to ask you your absolute. I've asked you about the hardest impressions to do, but your absolute favourite impression, the one that wherever you go, and you play cruise ships that travel across the world, you're around the UK, you're international in your approach. What's the one impression that everybody loves, that you love to do?
I think probably overall, I would say over the years, especially since Britain's Got Talent, it's got to be Anton Deck. I think that's the one that people ask for, especially the deck. It's one of those ones when you're moving from one voice to another, and you know that you do one better than the other, so you try and get onto the good one as soon as you can. So with Anton Deck, because he had that sort of like that way of repeating what Ant said to sort of like push the point home to the audience, which is, I think they're absolutely brilliant. They're just superb to watch and a joy to work with. But yeah, so it would just always be, okay, welcome back to Britain's Got Talent. That's right, welcome back to Britain's Got Talent. Coming live and direct from my bedroom, as it happens. Yeah, that's the one. I always get requested Ant Deck. Yeah.
Right. Britain's Got Talent. We've talked a lot about Britain's Got Talent, and you were working in theatre, in panto, well before that, but it's a show that has been a launchpad for so many people. What did it mean for you?
Well, it was great. Like you say, it's that launchpad. I'd been working as an actor. I've been travelling around I was doing mainly sort of holiday parks in the UK. I was doing some hotels out in the Med, various pubs and clubs in the UK, which meant using up a lot of my tyres, to be honest, because I spent a lot of time driving around the country doing gigs, and that was for about 15 years, I guess, before I did Britain's Got Talent. And then to get on a show like that, to suddenly be thrust in front of 10 or 11 million people, it's just wonderful. You would never be able to buy that sort of publicity, but it was a risk. To be fair, it's a risk because if it goes wrong, you don't quite get it right, and the judges didn't like you and they buzzed you, or the audience were shouting, "Get off, you're rubbish." I go, "Oh no, not again." But it can be it can be a bit of a risk. But it was a risk worth taking because it opens up so many doors for you. You know, I did a lot of work with famous people afterwards, did a lot of shows and turning up and doing 10-minute spots with all these huge star names, and getting on the cruise ships as well. It helped me to start getting more work on the cruise ships as well. So it sets you up nicely. So for me, it was the best thing I say about it is it was a massive boost for my career, and I would advise anyone to give it a go because it was great fun as well, and so many great memories to look back on as well.
Is Simon Cowell everything he's reported to be? I don't know how much time you spent with the judges.
No, do you know what? He was absolutely fine. He was lovely. I mean, he spoke to me. He went move, but he was a very nice man. Very short as well. Actually, I was quite surprised. He totters in on his heels like that. I shook his hand like that. Nice to meet you. And then I met Anton Deck. I thought this is like Snow White in the Seven Dwarfs. But nice to meet you. But no, he was a very nice man. He was very nice to me. And when I got knocked out in the semi-final, he sort of gave me a thumbs up and went, "Well, there's always the wild card like that," and gave me a thumbs up and he just said, "Good luck." And I spent a lot of time with David Walliams because I was the only comic act when it got to the final, so he was a big supporter of mine. And Anton Deck are as lovely as they are on screen. They are exactly the same off screen, just lovely, affable, and great fun to be around, and just genuinely nice guys.
That's a great thing to hear because that's exactly how they come across. You know, you watch them and you think there's a very special kind of, if I could just get rid of my telephone here.
Don't answer it might be my agent.
I had a timer on because I thought I'm going to chat to you for ages, and my phone's just told me I have been chatting to you for too long. No, Anton Deck always come across that way, as though they have a special kind of a chemistry. I don't know how you put that into words.
I know. It really is difficult. I think because they were best friends from school days, and that I think that definitely helps with them, and they know each other's plus sides and minus sides, and they're always there to work off each other. I think, and I think they've built up a career as being just a couple of blokes that you would chat with, or have a bit of a laugh with, and I think that comes across on screen. They're just natural, and they are unbelievably natural, aren't they? When you see them on TV, they've got it down to a fine art. I think they're brilliant.
So what you see is what you get, isn't it? Final question for you. You're going to be out here in Dubai towards the end of the year on the QE2. It's a very special venue. What can we expect?
Well, I would absolutely. I'm so looking forward to coming over there. And the last time I was there, because I come out quite regularly on holiday. We've got quite a few friends who live out there and work out there. So the last time I was there, we did the tour. We did the tour of the QE2. And it was great to have a wander around, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to do a show in here? And it's actually happening. So big thanks to everyone there at QE2 and Big Fish as well. Just lots of fun in my show. Lots of comedy, lots of silly stuff. A few more props as well to do my comedy with. I've got a mean Ozzy Osbourne wig as well, which I put on, which helps with the sea shadows, like that. So lots of jokes, loads and loads of impressions, of course. A few little sketches, lots of comedy, and a bit of singing as well. I do a little bit of singing as well. So a little bit of it's variety all rolled up into one show.
We'll ask you about the singing next time we talk. There's one more final chance to win tickets tonight to Jon's show on board the QE2 later in 2020. Comment in the feed you're watching. The question, what year did Jon appear on Britain's Got Talent? We'll announce the winner and the answer on tomorrow's show. Don't forget to follow Theatre by QE2, Big Fish Comedy, and Book My Show UAE on social media for more chances to win and for more on upcoming shows too. Jon Clegg's been with us. Jon, it's been dead funny and great fun talking to you. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been fabulous. Thanks for having me.
That's all the time we have. Thanks for watching tonight. We're back on Saturday, slightly earlier, 6 o'clock in the evening. Same place, famous golfers, Bernard and Stephen Gallagher, and the famous tall Scotsman, Chris McCarty, chatting about the Ryder Cup and all things golf. Don't forget to check out and follow the Instagram handles for QE2 Theatre at Big Fish Comedy ME and Book My Show _UAE. That'll get you news of our next shows and more. And like and follow the Facebook page you're watching as well. Of course, thank you to Theatre by QE2, Book My Show, H2 Productions, and Nigel for pressing the buttons. And that's it for tonight. Stay safe, wear your masks. Good night.